Hello and welcome to another episode of the Auto Guide Show brought to you by eBay Motors. This week, Kyle and I don't drive a lot, but a lot of cars are introduced. We have two special guests, and we have an interesting question of the week. But first, a word from our sponsor. Picture this. You're halfway through a DIY car fix, tools scattered everywhere, and boom, you realize you're missing a part. It's okay, because you know whatever it is, it's on eBay. They've got everything, brakes, headlights, cold air intakes, whatever you need, and it's guaranteed to fit, which means no more crossing your fingers and hoping you ordered the right thing. All the parts you need, at the prices you'll love, guaranteed fit every time. eBay, things people love. Okay, so let's kick it off because we have a packed show this week. So the first big news, first big model that was revealed this week is the new Passport. And that might have not seemed like big news based on the current Passport, which is an okay vehicle, but there's nothing special. But Honda's gone all in with this one. And they've basically, I guess the best way to describe it is they've made sort of a front wheel biased unibody Bronco. Like they've gone all in with off-road with skid plates and all-terrain. It's got two trail sport trims. RTL's the base. That used to be sort of an off-roady version. It's going all in. And the video, we're getting a lot of comments from people who are saying, "Oh, V6 is awesome. I don't need to get the 4Runner." And I'm thinking, don't quite think it's going to be at 4Runner levels of off-roadness, but this is what Honda's trying to do, right? Like the people who aren't going to really overland and rock crawl extreme, this would be perfect. And it looks great.
It does look really good. I was gonna say, like, I didn't know what to expect because the Passport is not a vehicle that I think really does much currently. I think the current generation checks a box. Honda needed something between CR-V and Pilot, and that's what it does. But this one is cool. It kind of looks like that old, maybe it was an Acura from the 90s. Well, yeah, I was gonna say there's also some element to it.
It looks like remember the it was Honda or Acura that had the Trooper clone.
That's like the SLX, I think it was in the 90s for like 2 years. It's boxy and good, and it actually looks distinct from everything else in Honda's lineup right now, while still looking like it's part of the family. I'm genuinely, like, if someone would have told me at the beginning of the year, hey, a Passport is going to debut this year and you're going to actually find it really interesting, I'd be like, nonsense. But here we are.
I like with the trail sports, the amber running lights that kind of go around the headlight. It looks kind of cool in the video. There's a video full introduction of it that you can watch on our YouTube channel. And I also published a Pilot trail sport video this week. And I was really impressed with what they did with that, because a lot of those rugged trims aren't so rugged on these 3-rows, but Honda really seems to, they know what they're going after. They're not going after, like I said, like a crazy rock crawler, but flying at high speeds or decent speeds on those roads that are full of muddy potholes or washboard or that, like that's what it excels at. And this should just take it better. And you made the great point, like it was just there between. And we've said on this podcast several times, a 2-row SUV midsize, it seems you need to be a niche or have something. And I think Honda was like, what do they have to lose? So they went all in with the rugged. And Murano's gone super premium, the Outback, and now this is going super off-roady. And I think it'll do well for them. It's it'll be an image car as much as anything, but so what?
Yeah, cool. Are we going to see this at LA?
I don't know. I hope so. I mean, it would be kind of weird to introduce it now and not bring it, but
yeah. Okay.
And sticking with Honda, they introduced another SUV, although technically it's Acura, the ADX, which we've mentioned a couple times because it's been teased quite a few times.
Yes, I think the year kicked off with the confirmation that this was happening, and here we are 11 months later. This does feel like checking a box.
It is.
It's a tall Integra or a fancy HRV. I don't know. Take your pick.
Well, technically, like it's based on the Integra, but apparently there are some differences between Integra and Honda with like motor mounts and stuff. So I guess it's not 100% related to the HRV, but it basically is.
Yeah. So there's some slightly different engine mounts. I mean, it's handsome because Honda's current design language is Acura's is pretty good.
Yeah, Granite Squirrel's
It's
nice.
yeah, it's big because the HRV is big. And so you'll get a lot of car for your money. I do think, like, just immediately off the bat, looking at this, the CVT is going to be the weak point. Like, it's a real hard sell to sell a premium vehicle against something like a BMW X1 with a CVT.
Yeah, it's a shame they don't have a transmission they could put in like the Accord CVT. Like that's what they have. I mean, the TLX maybe, but
So
that's if it matches up.
I wonder what happened, because the previous generation Accord with the 2-liter turbo did have a 10-speed auto. And so I wonder if
It's in the
that's
TLX.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, that powertrain is in the TLX, and I'm just like, so is there no way? I'm guessing the size of this platform makes it untenable.
Yeah, 10-speed automatic might take up a lot of. Although it is big,
Yeah.
like you said. Again, there's a great video you guys should check out on our Auto Guide YouTube channel introducing this, and it is bigger than the Lexus NX, even though it's fighting against the UX price wise, and it's the same size as a GLC or a BMW X3. Like that's big for what it is, and the Integra starts at 33,000 in the US, and they are saying this should be in like the mid 30s. So if it starts 35, 36, obviously you need to put probably $2,000 on to get all wheel drive.
Yeah.
That's still pretty competitive, and I think they'll sell a lot. They're called, like Acura flat out calls it the gateway Acura to get younger people into their brand, which is kind of telling about the Integra and sedans that young people don't care, sadly. The one big difference, though, we haven't even talked about is it has the 1.5 turbo. It does not have the 2-liter that was in the HRV. It has the Integra's engine, like the entire setup, which it could have been a manual, right? But anyway.
Ooh, ADX Type S, here we come.
Yeah, let's go for it.
I mean, I actually want to see the hybrid in this personally, but whatever.
One of our commentators said that, like, they really missed the chance here to make this the hybrid. I'm curious just to see what the final numbers are, because the Civic makes 180 and the Integra makes 200 horsepower. The Integra has an auto with 200, which Honda doesn't get, but they said it's similar to the drivetrain or similar to the power plant in the Integra or something along those lines, but no mention of exact output. So one of three things: they don't know yet, they just can't claim it. Most likely it's less. Maybe it's only like 180 and they don't want to announce that yet. I mean, it's still better than HRV, but I could see like all their competitors now make around 200. I mean, the UX used to not, but it's up there now. The X1, the GLA, like they're all up there. So you need to have
like 240 now.
Yeah, you need to have that, like that 200 mark. Even though you and I and no one would probably really feel much difference between 180 to 200, it's at that point, it's, it's bragging and marketing.
Yeah, but I feel like people who are the gateway, people who are entering the brand, I don't think they're really even going to care about a horsepower figure, but they will care if that CVT is Moni. So
yeah, I'll look forward to it. I mean, they made a huge deal about all the sound detonating and sound insulation they put in.
Well, that's
like
good.
There's a whole paragraph. So probably to your point is they're trying to get ahead of the curve.
Okay, cool.
So moving on to a hybrid, an SUV
with a Droney eCVT.
Something we did drive, although it wasn't us, it was our freelancer Lee Bailey. This was during SEMA, so we missed it, unfortunately. I really want to know, I want to drive this. I'm gonna now try to book it, and I think we've talked about trying to get a comparison of it with something. It's the Mazda CX-50 Hybrid, and for those that don't know, it's heavily borrowing Toyota drivetrain, or it just took the entire Toyota drivetrain.
It just took the entire thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's a 2.5, just like the regular CX-50 is, but it's not the same 2.5 as Toyota's Atkinson cycle, whatever, 2.5 with the hybrid setup. So, I mean, it's going to be great on gas, and it makes like 219. Yeah. So it should make the 219. I mean, I'd assume maybe it's Mazda. They'll be like, it's 221. We're
221 on premium.
So, and we drove it, what was that, 2 years ago in our big compact crossover shootout, and we were surprised how fast the RAV4 hybrid was, especially even at highway speeds. It just kept pulling, even though it wasn't the highest numbers or anything. So that'll fit sort of the CX-50s. persona, but
Yeah.
like you said, that droney ECVT.
That's the thing, is because the RAV4's hybrid system is old now. The Prius debuted the 5th gen, and it has some tweaks that just makes the transmission smoother. And I can't wait. I mean, the new RAV4 is coming in a year, so it'll be interesting to see what that powertrain is like, because this one will be outdated unless Mazda also updates. But I do think like this now makes the CX-50 more appealing, right? It's a hybrid. There's still not a lot of choices in the segment for hybrid. Um, and I mean, it looks good. It's always looked good. It drives well. It's better on gas, because that was the thing, is you had 2 engines before that neither were particularly great on gas.
I mean, this segment's getting pretty hybrid heavy in the next year, because you got this and it's Toyota Twin. I don't know what we call it. Honda, Kia, Hyundai, Mitsubishi, and then Nissan's coming.
Yeah.
Allegedly.
So all the
that partnership's
Japanese
kind of fun.
choices.
That partnership's apparently falling apart, so I don't know what's going to happen there. But anyway, back to this. I would say think of it as a RAV4 hybrid that handles way better and has a far nicer interior. I mean, it's also going to be more expensive, but
but no, that's the thing. It's like, do you like the RAV4 hybrid but are tired of getting lost in parking lots trying to find your car? Well, congratulations. Here's the car for you.
Are you tired of buying the car that everyone else buys because it's such a good value for your dollar?
Yeah.
Oh, look, another SUV. This one, though, is all electric this time. So Cadillac introduced, again, hopefully you see this in LA, the Vistiq, and I am so lost on these names, Optic, Vistiq, Cellstick, Lyric. But this one, I had to read to find out what it is. So it's replacing the XT6. So this is the new 3-row.
I just want to point out, sorry, Cadillac, the XT6 has to be like one of the most disappointing vehicles that you can buy new right now. So this already is an improvement.
Yeah, well, because the XT4 is dead. They just killed that too. Like,
wait, they killed the XT4, the one that they just updated like this year with a facelift? Okay.
And then the Lyric, I assume, is going to take out the XT5. That they might keep, though, because it's somewhat new and you need a gas alternative, I think. But yeah, like you said, this is taking out the XT6. So anyway, I mean, we look at it. 3 things that have me very positive about this. First, it looks like an SUV. It's not a weird EV. And I don't mean like the Lyric looks good, but it's got like, you see it and you're like, whoa, what is that? This is what I think the segment needs, and Genesis is doing it sort of with their EVs as well. It looks like a regular SUV that just happens to be electric.
Genesis is doing it except with the GV60.
Yeah, well, that's their Lyric. It's that's
the weird one. Yeah. No, I know what you mean.
So this has over 600 horsepower, dual motor. So it's probably the setup from their trucks, but in here they're saying it's similar to the Lyric, but the Lyric doesn't have that much power.
The Lyric has 500, but I mean, if this is bigger, it makes sense that you just put a little more.
Yeah, you could probably fit the bigger battery in too. But yeah, I mean, I have high hopes for it because we love the Lyric, and I like the Hummer EV. It was just ridiculous, but I mean, fundamentally, it did everything right. So if this can sort of take its drivetrain and put it into a Lyric body, it could have a great combo.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. The Lyric is one of my favorite EVs. A 3-row version that looks more like a traditional SUV should really work well in the market. Fun story about the Vistiq. I saw this a year and a half ago, but I can talk about it now. I was at Cadillac headquarters to see the updated XT4, and we went into a hallway to head to a different room, and this was parked in the hallway. Someone had forgotten to move it, and we were very kindly asked to ignore it, because to your point, it didn't even look like it didn't look like a new vehicle, in the sense that like it took a second for us to queue in. We just thought it was maybe an XT6 facelift, right? And then we're walking around it, we're like, wait a minute, the grill's covered up. Like, wait a minute, there's no exhaust. This is an EV. It was very surprising, to say the least.
I do the Jedi mind trick to you. This is not the SUV you were here to see.
And we're like, no, it's not. We're here to see the one you're going to cancel in a year.
Well, it's not dead yet. Like, it's going to live out its run, but
yeah,
I get it. It probably wasn't selling great, and I think I liked it. I actually like the pre-facelift. Like I took it to Detroit and back from
Yeah,
Toronto, and it was perfectly good at what it was supposed to do.
yeah,
And you get Super Cruise in it.
yeah.
Always a fan.
It's great, but it's an expensive small SUV, and those are a tough
Yeah.
sell. But yeah, I'm looking forward to that. As soon as it comes out, great.
Oh, I got click happy there. All right, our
Cool.
last one quickly. Our new, I forget what his title is. Greg's gonna kill me. I'll have to look it up. I think he's the content director,
Editorial director.
editorial director.
He
He's our
is a
boss.
director. Our new director.
So he had a Civic Hybrid for a short period of time, and yeah, he likes it. I mean, I haven't really heard anyone who's driven it that's been like, "This is terrible." So, as we've said before, we need to get this and the Prius together.
The new Civic Hybrid, the sedan in particular, feels like one of those vehicles that will inadvertently kill its class. Because this just seems like the easy choice, right? Like I know it's expensive, I know that. Uh, Although that K4 that I drove last week is creeping up to it in price. I think a lot of vehicles are going to start creeping towards this in price, but it's so good at everything. We haven't gotten to drive it yet, but we've heard that from everyone. And now, yeah, it's just as good as the pre-facelift, except now you get wicked good fuel economy. So, like,
And decent power still. It's got more
yeah,
power than the SI. So
yeah,
it's not like you're losing out there. I think the only detriment to it, and it's only regional specific, so Canada and northern US, is the Corolla and the Prius have their all-wheel drive system, which isn't like huge, but it will sell people because they just see the AWD on the trunk. So
yeah, which is funny because in the Corolla's case, it's like 6 horsepower going to the rear or something. Like it's
yeah,
barely all-wheel drive, but yeah, I like
it
marketing
helps you when you
works.
need it to get up to speed, I guess.
Yeah, like if you are getting no grip from the front, it might help. But yeah, I struggle to figure out why I'd want an Accord at this point because the Civic is so big inside.
It is. All right. Well, we're going to take a break on the Auto Guide show brought to you by eBay Motors. When we come back, we will have an interview in our continuing SEMA special. And then Kyle and I will be back for a question of the week. Then we'll have some more special guests and Colin with F1. And then we'll wrap it up with a look ahead. We'll be right back. Swapping out your tires? There's nothing like it. With eBay, you'll find the feel you're looking for, from smooth highway rides to grip for rough terrain. Get all the tires you need at prices you'll love. eBay, things people love. Welcome back to the Auto Guide show. We have a special guest on as part of our SEMA series. Probably best for our listeners for you to introduce yourself and what you do.
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much. So my name is Neil Young. I'm the engineering manager at Mopar, and my team's responsible for the development of accessories and service parts.
All right, so there's quite a lot of that. There's quite a broad spectrum with Mopar of different kind of vehicles. So that kind of leads the first question. How or why or what did you decide you wanted to build to bring to this show? Because you have various different vehicles. So is that something that's decided like years in advance, or is it sort of more closer to the show, you see what's hot?
You know, in general, most of the plan is finalized about a year in advance. But, you know, we always end up with more ideas than we can fit in the showroom floor for a year. So some carry over the next year and we revisit it. We like to give attention to each of the brands, right? And you'll see on our floor today, you know, we have some truck, some Ram representation, some Dodge representation, and of course Jeep. So we try to spread it out, and again try to cover all our bases from a customer perspective.
You even have Plymouth on the floor.
Yeah, Roughback a classic. Yeah, Plymouth is an unusual one for us there.
Yeah.
It's good to see that.
Yeah. So I made a video and article about it when it first came out about the GTX Electro mod. I think it's really cool. I think it makes a lot of sense. We've been talking with various folks or just amongst ourselves about classics, how putting an EV hard into them can make them last so much longer, because it's getting harder to buy parts, and some of those engines weren't the best to begin with in terms of long distance reliability. So I guess your question is this just something you're exploring, or is there a demand amongst the classic car, muscle car group that are looking for this?
Yeah, so we're trying to figure out that actually. So we have a very successful Hemi crate program, right? And then we have, even on the production side, we're moving into the electric vehicles, and we now have access from a technology perspective to some pretty amazing parts. So we're like, okay, maybe this is something we add. It's not meant to replace, the Hemi crate package, the whole program, but add. Is there additional customers interested in this aspect? So what we did is a couple of years ago, we actually had an electric CJ Surge, if you recall. It's an electric CJ, and we said, okay, with this kind of power, this type of motor, would people enjoy it in like an open air environment from a Jeep perspective? And so we started with that. It was received very well. And then we said, okay, that gave us some background on maybe what a Jeep customer or a classic like truck customer would be interested in. And then we expanded it. We said, okay, let's take it to more extreme, maybe get more passionate comments, both ways. Take something that, looks amazing, classic, bring back the Plymouth name, because we still obviously really support and enjoy that brand in our history. And so we brought it back as a rear-wheel drive, performance-looking car, but similar electric powertrain system, based off of our production system that'll be out probably dealers at the end of this year. And get the feedback. Who is interested in this? What kind of person's interested in this? What's important to them? How important is range versus power? You mentioned the reliability. That pretty much will come with any electric system we do. And the other aspect is, who is the customer? You have the end customer. They're the ones that enjoy the vehicle and drive it. But you also have the installer or the fabricator. They're not always the same person. Sometimes someone is paying someone else to do the installation. And from that perspective, you got to take into account, more torque. And it's similar to ICE, not necessarily the same. But if you have a huge engine, huge powerful torque, then the whole rest of the vehicle has to be reinforced, right? When you're talking about classic cars. So in this case, we try to keep it more bolt-on, a little bit of fabrication if someone wanted to do it themselves, and then get the feedback. That was really the goal, is to learn. So we haven't made any decisions yet.
Yeah, so before Kyle asks the next question, I really like how, like you said, bolt-on, how you have it for the two different series that it could go into, and the big concern people have is battery, but with the pack in the trunk and then the other one under the hood, like, they can be easily replaced. They're not integrated into the chassis. So I think it's good all around. And the video I made of it, I mean, we have a lot of the, diehards saying this is terrible, but we also had quite a few people say, like, this is what I've been looking for not just Plymouth, like Mustang and whatnot from the past. So anyway, if you're wanting to bring back old brands, Eagle Talon EV.
All right, good to know.
Dual motor.
Got it. All right.
Yeah. So keeping on the subject of what you were talking about, I mean, seeing this shift, how do you see Mopar really shifting in this new world towards EVs? Like, how has the brand had to kind of change pace to adapt to all of this?
Yeah, I don't know if it's really a change of pace. It's actually, it's more natural than some out there might think. I know Mopar people are used to, again, the crate engines, Hemis, and lots of fuel going through the motor and lots of power. But really, with the environment all around us, there's more EVs around us. The whole general automotive customers being more comfortable with the charging aspects of the EV. Like, all of that is becoming more natural to everyone. More homes have the charging units. People are getting used to what it means as far as heat to your range, if that's an issue. So all that is becoming more natural. And so as the customers get more comfortable with it and you have more people open to the idea, it's just natural that, we believe that the demand is actually going to start growing. And that we're trying to measure that and understand that, but that's kind of what our thought process is going forward.
Well, that makes sense.
Yeah, we've talked about this before too, is especially later 70s, 80s, early 90s cars, a lot of them didn't have all that inspiring drivetrains to begin with, and I think you're kind of getting ahead of the curve of this is a way to keep a lot of older cars alive, because if you can just put in even if it's not a really big EV power plant, but just something that you, as we've said, you just go and run with, you don't have to think about it. You can have that cool whatever body from whatever era you're a fan of.
Right.
Like a neon ACR.
Yeah.
Right.
With a tiny little motor and battery pack.
Yeah.
It's small. Yeah.
You know, what's interesting is we've been getting a lot of feedback from folks that are interested in this, actually giving us examples of vehicles they'd like to be converted. A lot of them have multiple vehicles that come up to us. So they may have 5 or 6 vehicles, and some of them they may only drive once a year. And they explain, like, I don't even sometimes get to drive that once a year because it's been sitting so long. It takes me 5 to 6 hours to get it going. Then I give up, and so I don't even drive it. So this would be nice for something like that. You know, you have a electric powertrain, it'd be reliable. You just go out there and you take it for a spin and, park it in its spot until the next year.
We, I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago, we had an expert on about winter car storage. And like what you just said is exactly it. Like you just park it, and then in the spring you get back in it. You don't have to do the gas stabilizer, and
Right.
like older cars maybe clean out the throttle body and stuff. It's just I think it is the future for not hot rodding, but just
Right.
preservation of classic cars. So back to SEMA, because that's where we are. Do you wander around the floor when you get a chance? I know you get very few chances because you're busy, but just to see what other people are doing and get inspiration from not even other OEMs, but just aftermarket independents.
Yeah, so I do like to walk the floor. I really enjoy that. The good and the bad this year is we've got a lot of good feedback and interest in our booth and our vehicles. I haven't been able to walk the floor yet. So tomorrow I'm hoping to do that a little bit. But yeah, it's nice to see what people think they are thinking. And you can identify trends, right? Even though someone may not be saying, it might even be a color. We have our own design stylists that work with Mopar within the corporation. They're here as well. And yeah, they're great. They have a keen eye, and they can pick out a trend like, hey, everyone's starting to go into these kind of colors, and they keep us in front of everything. Technology-wise, if there's something new that people are trending towards, maybe it's a type of lighting, we're here trying to make sure that we're up in front of it. And again, this show helps us with that, but we have strong contacts with the supply base and so forth. So we kind of have, we're Mopar, but we have a network, a much larger network, we'll say team and support personnel that help us keep in front of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, like I said, trends, like we've noticed some.
We've noticed one trend, and maybe it's for the ICE version of the Charger. It seems everyone's taking the turbochargers and putting them outside the hood, and then putting headlights in the turbocharger.
Yeah.
So there you go. That's the
See
seeming
that
trend
yet.
for this year.
But one thing, and first off, we talk about colors. I love the color combo we put on the GTX.
Yeah,
Thank you. I'll pass that along.
Especially the interior.
But something you did on it too, which I've noticed in other, mainly EV converters, but even some classic cars, is a lot of people are starting to build gauge clusters that fit in the old style, and maybe you have digital recreations, but it's a modern digital one.
Yeah.
And then you have more function with it, and same with sort of like the radio head unit. And I think that's really cool because, we grew up in an era where you just slap in something that didn't fit and you kind of make some molding around it. But having something that's like plug and play but is modern, I just think it's a nice touch. So.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. So, tough question, and it's open-ended. You can choose how tailored you want to make this, but we have to ask because we're here at SEMA. What's your favorite car? It can be at the show or from your own brand, or if you want to talk about some other one.
Wow.
I can't imagine you do.
No, that's a tough. I like a lot of them, but my favorite one is the GTX Electromod.
Yeah.
And really, it's a beautiful car. We got lots of beautiful cars and Jeeps, trucks in our booth. But I love the conversation. People are passionate about it, one way or another, a lot of people. And I just like the fact that there's still people out there, and actually there's lots of people, but it's nice discussing with them, getting their feedback. Whether I agree with it or not, it doesn't really matter. But yeah, I like that vehicle is causing people to stop, look, and talk about it. Like they want to talk to us, they want to give someone their input. And that's a good sign, right? That's a good sign for all of us in this industry who enjoy the business. So that's my favorite,
Yeah. One last question before we wrap it up, but I don't know, you haven't walked the floor, but someone has. I don't know if it's the real movie car or replica, but they have the Joe Dirt.
I heard.
Yeah.
I heard. I've seen my team. Some of them got a chance to walk the floor. They've shown me some pictures, and they were trying to figure out how they recreated it, if it was the movie car or.
I don't think it is because you can see the rust and all that's a wrap that's been put on it.
Oh,
But,
it is.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
But it's a cool recreation because
Yeah, sure.
I love those wing cars. Like that's
Sure.
ever since I was a teenager. Like I love those
Yeah.
cars. So there's one that could have an electromod restoration. But so you've kind of talked about this throughout the interview. But why is it important that Mopar still comes to SEMA? Because we have a handful of manufacturers that still do, and some that have left.
Yeah. Well, I think the number one thing we're at SEMA is communication. So we're out there. We want to share what we're doing, what we have to offer. What's available. We take things. We use our concepts to be practical concepts, like things on them we could potentially do, offer, and sell. And I think it's important to kind of like make that conversion as concrete as possible. What I mean by that is we've put flat fenders on Jeeps for a while and put them on our concepts. They're all concepts. But we figured out a way to do it very smoothly using the integrated production, LED, and all that stuff. And it's available now, but now communicate, hey, it's available. Like it's not just a concept because people look at it and they think, oh, no, it's still a concept. Things like that. The Ram bar on the TRX, this was years ago, but, it was on concepts. And we referred to it, but then we made that production. So communicating what's out there, what's available, and then using our concepts to get the feedback. We talked about, getting trends in the industry. That's all valuable. And then, of course, we get a lot of feedback and support from the network. They come to see us. It can be efficient for us to have those discussions with suppliers, future suppliers, and basically just, have that interaction with the enthusiast about what's important to them that we convert. Innovation. We had an innovation there today with the adjustable LED light bar on the outside edges of the high top Gladiator. I don't know if you guys have a chance to see it. It's outstanding. But again, we have this impression of it's awesome, it's great, everyone will want one, but actually bringing it here and seeing if it has the same result helps us make decisions on the product. So customer research and communication, I think, are the biggest things.
I think, from our impression on the other side here is, Stellantis as a whole gets this reputation for bringing a lot of concepts to various events like the Safari, but with an eye towards production intent or availability down the road. And I think people get that, and like you said, people keep talking.
Yeah.
And I think just looking around, the number of Challengers and Jeeps and Rams, like your audience is definitely here. Someone even made a Charger into a Ute outside in the parking lot. So your audience is here too. So.
Yeah, that's the last reason we come. We do it for an ego boost.
Yeah. All right. Well, you gave us a lot of great info. We look forward to what you do in the future, next year, even before then. So thanks a lot for joining us on the show.
Thanks.
All right. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
All right. All right. So welcome back. This week's question is based on what we talked about earlier. There was 5 SUVs we talked about of every kind of drivetrain, and then one poor sedan at the very end. And sedans are falling out of favor, but I thought, let's give them some attention. Let's give them some love. So the question is, what do you think are sedans that changed the game? And I mean, we could go back to like the 30s, so let's put some sort of preface to it. So you and I remember the 90s pretty well. So let's say like mid 90s to now. That's like a 30-year gap.
Okay.
And that is also just me totally leading into my first one. Because I saw one again today, and I realized every time I see one, they're in great shape. They're usually somewhat modified. And you can't say that these are still on the road. Sorry. You can't say any other American sedan of that time is cared for so much and still on the road today. And it's the Pontiac Grand Prix GTP. When that thing came out with its supercharged V6 that made 240 horsepower, like V6 sedans were struggling to make 200 horsepower. And the Pontiac was like, let's just throw the biggest engine we have with a supercharger in this car. And it looked so good back then. Like I remember when it came out. The other thing was I think they maybe advertised that wider's better. I think there's some sort of wide track campaign around.
Yeah.
But it was true. Like everything was kind of narrow and tall because that was sort of when Chrysler 2 was starting to experiment with cab forward, where they kind of started to stretch things out. I just remember like seeing it against a a 97 Accord or Camry. I mean, they were better cars, but they looked so like, eh. And then you see this big, wide, growly thing that's burning its front tires in third gear go down the street. So yeah, that's my first one. And they, like I said, they're still around. I mean, I don't see any Malibus
That's
or Trepids.
that's the most suburban Southern Ontario choice for this question. I just want to point that out. But fair, you're right. It was like
I didn't pick an Alero or Aurora. Okay, I went with something different.
No, you went with the one that had more mainstream appeal. My choice is slightly newer. I'm a couple of years younger, and so my time frame is shifted, right? But in my mind, I think the first Lexus IS 300 changed the game. I think before that, none of the Japanese brands really took on the Germans from a dynamic perspective. Like the ES sold really well. The Q45 was a cool luxury vehicle. The LS was obviously a big deal, and that knocked my laptop there.
Earthquake at Kyle's.
Yeah, the LS changed the luxury game, but I want to talk about the IS in particular because I feel like that was the first time that we saw any brand really challenge like the 3 Series. And it was obvious that that's what it was built around, right? It was like the same size. It was an inline 6.
Any non-German company.
Yeah, right. And then in short succession after that, we got the first Cadillac CTS. We got the Infiniti G35. We saw brands finally get the confidence to go after such an important model. And so, yeah, I really like the IS300. I've actually never driven a stock version of that generation. I've only driven some wild ice racing modified one.
Yeah, no, like you're right. It didn't change the game in the sense of like made everyone change how they built cars, but you're right. It put sort of Mercedes, Audi, and BMW on notice. And before then, Lexus included, your examples, Cadillac Infiniti, they were just rebadging a lot of other cars into there. So they weren't building dedicated platform cars like BMW does. And I it's so sad that the IS is kind of just fizzled to where it is, because it was like in the whole 2000s, it was like the car.
Yeah.
I think remember? Everyone wanted the Atenza taillights.
Yeah. And I think the catch is it's just gone where the market has. Like the 3 Series now is big and it's a luxury sedan first. If you want a sporty BMW, you go for a 2 Series instead. And I think that's the thing, is now the IS is more that mold.
Well, sticking around the same time, I know those the R2 were both late 90s. This is now into the early 2000s, and I think it was a not direct response, but I think it showed where the market was going since the GTP. Was when Nissan brought out the second generation Altima, and they gave it the 240 horsepower 3.5 liter V6. And again, like I think the Accord made 200, and I don't even think the Camry was there yet. And Nissan was like, here's a naturally aspirated V6 and it looked good. It was so much faster than everything else. And that started the horsepower war. Like within years, all the other Japanese were up to like 220, 240 horsepower V6s and
3.5 liter V6s.
Yeah. And the Americans started jumping up there. Like it was like, I think the Grand Prix showed that there's a market. And then Nissan was like, what if we like went even more mainstream? But like the IS, the Altima was like the sedan to have from like 02 to, I'd say, basically that whole first generation. And then it didn't really change ever until this current one.
No, and it also killed the Maxima essentially.
Yeah, you're right, because it was like a more nimble. And then remember the Nismo, Ultimate Nismo, with the handling package and the big brakes in it and the body kit.
Yep.
Awesome.
Yep, and the coupe for that matter. I know we're talking about sedans, but all right. Well, so you got your second pick. I feel like I have to do one final one as well. And my pick, we actually talked about it recently. You and I were talking about it last week. It's the 2008, 2009 Hyundai Sonata.
Oh, yeah, the one that got the super stylish. I mean, it doesn't. it looks so out of date now, but at the time, you're right. It was like, holy cow. Like, yeah.
Yeah, that was the first time that Hyundai really took a chance styling-wise in this market. And I think it put them on the map. And it was also pretty advanced too, right? Like that was the first generation where they brought a hybrid. And the hybrid had unique taillights with little lighting elements that kind of looked like an atom. It was three-dimensional. It was a really... Previous to that, the previous generation was this super conservative, very boring Accord clone. The one before that was kind of weird. Like, it was nice to see Hyundai become confident, and I think that's really what's led to what we see now, right? Like, does anyone really look at Hyundai as a discount value play anymore, or is it just they're a competitor that happens to sometimes be a little more affordable than the other options? Like, this was them stepping out of that role of just being a discount brand. That's my pick.
I think some people still do because they're just not up with like current what's going on. But right, anyone that's in the industry knows. I mean, people are like, oh, they have their problems with this and that. Well, everyone has their problems. But you're right. Much like the Altima, it was a little compact 4-cylinder, and then it went to like a proper midsize V6. The previous Sonata was like as generic is in looks, and then they brought that out. And again, like the Accord and the Altima and the Camry they weren't complete boxes, but they weren't that stylish. And I think Toyota especially, like it really made the Camry have to start having some sort of personality.
Yeah, and I think, remind me, I think this was one of the first sedans to go to a Turbo 4 versus a V6 too, because that generation ditched the V6.
Yeah. So, honorable mention, because it changed nothing, and I wish it had, but the whole company died. The Kizashi. Because actually had so much promise, and Suzuki did. Like it was, hey, we can do a premium version of these sedans that are a little bit smaller and a lot more affordable. And then
I think the Kizashi basically gave Mazda the idea that like, hey, wait a minute, we can make the 3-up market. All right.
Well, we are going to take a break on the Auto Guide Show, brought to you by eBay Motors. And when we come back, we're going to talk to a father-daughter duo who did a lot of driving in a Ford Raptor and went on an adventure. Until then, we'll be right back, and Kyle and I will be back later to talk about what we've been up to this week and what's happening next week. Picture this. You're in the garage, your favorite room in the house, and you're tuning up your engine with parts you found on eBay. Every piece is just locking perfectly into place. You step back to admire your work, hands covered in grease, and because you're committed to driving that thing further than the odometer can handle, you start to think to yourself, you know what, I could probably also use some new brakes, some shocks and struts, and this baby deserves a new air filter. So you head right back to eBay. You can find any part you need there, it's unreal. From wipers and headlights to cold air intakes, exhaust systems, and even that turbo you've had on your mind. eBay is the stocked garage of your dreams, and you've got eBay Guaranteed Fit. Because eBay knows DIY fixes can be major, and mods are always intense, so you need to know that these parts guaranteed to fit every time before you dive in wrench first. And in the off chance you order a part and it doesn't fit, send it back, simple as that. You know what you love more than the car itself is driving it. You're serious when it comes to engine maintenance, and you're locked in when you're headed into a build. And that's exactly why you start with eBay, minor fix or complete overhaul. You want to get your ride back on the road, and you've got eBay Guaranteed Fit. So eBay created My Garage, where all you have to do is add your ride's info and get the exact parts that fit. When you see the green check, you're a click away from that part clicking perfectly into place. So now that you know all that, imagine standing at that open garage door looking at your car you love more than anything, knowing that anything is possible. Whether it's keeping it on the road forever or turning it into something that's never been on the road before. Because with eBay, your garage just got a whole lot bigger. Get all the parts you need at prices you love, guaranteed to fit every time. eBay, things people love. All right, welcome back to the Auto Guide Show. This week we have two special guests in a segment we've never done before, talking about an adventure they went on. So if you could just quickly introduce yourselves. Renee, we'll start with you.
Rene Fabry. I'm the father of the next guest.
And I'm Zena Fabry, the daughter.
So we have you on because you guys took quite the adventure. we were briefly talking earlier, going almost across the entire continent. So first off, explain sort of what the event was you wanted to attend and how you heard about it. And then we can talk about it itself after.
Well, for starters, I seem to be getting regular emails from from Raptor, and so I received earlier this year an invitation to the Raptor Rally, and when I initially bought the Raptor, they had invited me to go to the Raptor school, and I wanted to go, and then things didn't work out, and so I set my mind to it. I said, I'm going. And there was a variety of people who were supposed to come and go with me, but I ended up with the runt of the family, the last one that was produced, and we decided to, although she is quite a ways further than I am, we decided to go to the first annual Raptor Rally.
What was your experience getting to spend so much time sort of stuck in the cab of a truck for many, many days?
Music.
Music.
Different choices of music.
He doesn't like my music.
I never said that. It's just I kept turning the channel. But different choices. But I was enjoying the countryside.
Mm-hmm. And that's not, the Raptor wouldn't be sort of the first thing you think of as a road trip vehicle, but how was it over that distance?
It was great.
Yeah.
We did a road trip a few years back with his first Raptor, and we had gone from Elliott Lake to Vancouver, down to California, and then shot up to Chicago.
Oh, wow.
So it wasn't our first Raptor, road trip.
So when you were there, what was the event like for people who don't know what a Raptor Rally is?
Well, we I guess we didn't know what to expect, and since it was the first rally, it started early in the morning, and I did get some complaints about getting up early and having to drive in the middle of nowhere, and it started at 6, and so we were driving. Well, before that, we were about maybe 40 miles from the actual racing school. And we didn't really know where we were going. We had it in the GPS. There was just a lineup of Raptors going by, and we decided, hey, we're going to follow them. And then we see like what I termed it Area 51 in the desert, all these big spotlights, and they were waving us past the entrance. And okay, I don't know where we're going now, but we couple of when I say kilometers, a couple of miles past the entrance. Then there was an individual on the side of the road with a flashlight waving us into the middle of the desert. And for a moment I said, this doesn't look good. But it was the entrance, and basically they made us go through sand traps and back roads into the event. And when we got to the event, there was this major Raptor sign with these spotlights, and they take your picture, hand you a bag of swag, and go park over there. And it was well organized, and they had all the events. You timed out. You were this whether it was rock climbing, whether it was the trail driving, whether the sand traps, the jumping, and they had all the different booths. It was interesting.
As we were entering, we looked at each other and we're like, let's hope this is a good event, because I don't want to regret this ride.
So was it?
It was worth it.
Yeah.
Well, I think it was, I wanted to see the country, and there were certain things on the way that I wanted to see as well on my bucket list. Like we went to Mount Rushmore and Crazy Horse, and those aren't on the beaten track if you're going to the States. So we did a detour. I really wanted to see it, and I was totally impressed, and it was interesting. We stopped at some. I find it in the U.S. there's a lot of roadside advertising, and after about 100 miles of the same ads over and over again, you kind of get convinced, saying, "I'm going to stop here. We got to see what this is like."
Mhm.
It's the Corn Palace or Wall's Drugstore. You know, it must be pretty good if it's advertised over the last 150 miles or so.
Did you get any air in your Raptor?
We got air in his Raptor.
Nice.
He didn't want to.
I was not driving.
He didn't. I had to convince him. I said, "We drove this far. We are jumping the truck, whether you like it or not."
And that's what they're for, right?
Yeah,
Those
it's
are
made
runners.
for it. Yeah.
Well, they
Yeah.
had I guess guides, for lack of a better term, and they were explaining everything and telling you what to do, and it was all planned. And don't worry, this truck is engineered. It was quite cool, like the rock climbing and the side hill driving, all of those things. You know, I really wouldn't do with my truck anyways. As opposed to the jumping, when we sent the pictures home, my son said, "Yeah, I did that with your truck." I don't think he did. I think he's lying. But needless to say, he's not borrowing my truck again.
Yeah, just
But
blacklisted.
as someone who does these drives, and sometimes they're not with my own car, I know that nagging feeling of I need to get back home still in this vehicle. Can't break down this far away from home because we sometimes go to drag strips and other areas. But I mean, it's really cool that Ford does this because that's what these are meant for. Not everyone, I mean, it sounds like you have areas that maybe get to test it a bit, but not everyone has anywhere near them. So it's
well, we have
nice
a lot of wilderness and a lot of off-road trails, and like so some of the rock climbing, you know, I was just mentioning, well, I do that at work all the time. We have a logging business, and some of our roads are pretty bad. And well, you know, that's fine. But I certainly don't jump any of our pickups. I never have. But it was super cool, and they explained everything to you, which was nice. But I mean, they did take you on the racing lap with their what was it, Zena?
It's like a derby racing truck.
Oh yeah.
And it goes really quick. It's a 30-second lap.
Oh wow.
And they put a chest protector on you. They strap in your neck and all that, and you blink your eye, and you're done. You're done the track.
And it was a mile track.
It's a mile track, and it's like 30 seconds.
Oh, wow.
It was unreal.
Insane. It's insane. Yeah.
I didn't go on that.
So before we let you go, I guess the big question is, would you do another one of these if you got the invite?
Oh,
I would. I just wouldn't. I wouldn't do the driving again.
Yeah. Flying is part of the
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you need a Raptor to be down there, so.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'd fly to wherever the Raptor is. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So cut out the first part of your drive portion then.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Make it a little bit shorter.
Come on, Nova Scotia to Northern Ontario is it's not the most picturesque drive. It's a lot of highway. Yeah, I've done that a couple times. Yeah, well, it sounds like a fantastic event. I don't have a Raptor, so I'll never get to go. But I've driven all of them.
Attitude.
I've driven all of them, but the Bronco. The Raptor R. I don't know if you've ever got a chance to drive one of those.
I was actually talking to a dealer today about a Raptor R.
They are amazing. The sound, like, you'll just rev your engine all day long, and that's all you need. It's just
like you see, I got the Shelby upgrades or the Whipple upgrades on mine. When I bought it in 21, they didn't have the R out yet, and it was just post-COVID. So the dealer was from St. Thomas, Ontario, sent it to the Shelby shop in Windsor, and put all the insides, the exhaust, the supercharger, the Whipple, the Whipple supercharger, but we didn't put any badging on it because it already had the 37 premium package, which was the lift and 37 tires. So basically, it's like a lamb and it's a wolf in sheep's clothing.
As much as a Raptor can be.
It is quite fast because Zena found out she was driving Oh, I think the speed limit was 70 or 80 miles an hour in Wyoming, and it was a long stretch. There was 2 transports, and I said pass, and she stomped her, and she burnt rubber doing 80 miles an hour.
Oh wow. Yeah, and that's the great thing about these trips is the stories you come away and experience, and just the memory. So it does sound like it was a fantastic event, and I look forward to hearing maybe new adventures of it next year.
But
Well-
but not driving the whole time.
Yeah.
Flying then driving.
Well, there's different routes to get there. I'd like to go south and come up Route 66 and then head north. Something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, trying to do as much of the old 66. That's a great drive. Yeah. Well, we thank you a lot for coming on. It sounds like I said, quite the adventure and quite the experience, and it just makes me want to do more road trips. I'm always up for a good drive as long as it's scenic.
Well, I think any area that you haven't been through is scenic to a certain extent. I mean, Saskatchewan it's like Nebraska, gets boring after a while, but you got to see it.
Exactly. Got to experience it once at least.
Yep.
That's true.
All right. Well, thank you very much. And I hope we talk to you again sometime.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Welcome back. Joining us once again for some Formula One news and rumors is Colin Wood. It's another off week, but quite a bit's happened, as always.
There's always a lot happening. And I don't know why I'm annoyed. I really honestly didn't think about it. I thought that there was F1 this weekend. I mean, by time people read this, it will be for Vegas, but we're now it's like a 3-week gap between these races. And I don't have a huge problem with these really long seasons. I love more racing. I just don't like these 3-week gaps. They drive me crazy. So
we were in Vegas just a couple weeks ago and it had the date everywhere. You should have it ingrained in your head by now.
I know. It would just 3 weeks seems like such a crazy long time to take off.
No,
I like that, the week on, week off thing.
Yeah, I was gonna say I agree. And what's frustrating is how we had like a month off, 3 straight weeks, 3 weeks off. Like, why can't you spread them out a bit? And I'm sure the teams would be glad to have that time because like Williams isn't even sure if they're gonna have cars capable to race this weekend.
I saw that rumor.
3 weeks off.
I know. I saw that rumor that they're so banged up and so out of parts. They just pack it in and go home for the rest of the season. But
well, apparently, like due to get your money basically at the end of the year, you have to show up contractually to every race. But apparently, if they do free practice 1 and then pack up shop, they're fine. So they have to like be there, but then be like. So we'll see what happens next week, I guess.
Albon's on a bicycle or something. I don't know how that works.
It's like those old NASCAR park and drive guys where they need to fill the field to the 43 always or 42, and like they had a handful of guys that did the math that if they showed up with a car that was useless, did a practice, and then packed up, they'd get enough prize money to be worth their while.
Yeah. All right, so diving into my news, because I understand you tell me you've got lots in the podcast this week, so I got to keep it short. There's going to be, for the first time ever, to celebrate the 75th anniversary of Formula One. They're going to do every year they usually do these car reveals, and it's like car reveals and livery reveals and everything reveals. They're going to do it all in one place, February 18th in the O2 Arena in London. So that sounds very interesting. Apparently, Max Verstappen was quoted as saying that he hopes he's sick that weekend.
I can see him totally not wanting to be involved in that because it's going to be such an over-the-top production. All the teams will be set up on podiums, like down on the field, and then everyone's car is going to be revealed. And
it sounds like a good time. So from that, the worst/best race on the F1 calendar. I mean, it's definitely not the best. It could be, maybe most fantastical. The Monaco Grand Prix, they signed a contract, is sticking around until I think they said 2031. And they're going to move it so it'll be in June versus May, so there's no conflict with the Indy 500. So
no more Memorial Day race. Yeah, I mean, it is the worst track and as far as action goes, but it's the most prestigious. It's such a weird combo. But it's never going to go anywhere as much as we wish it would. I don't have a problem with it being there. I just wish they'd figure a way to make it more entertaining. I know it's like you're driving on the city streets, but level part of the city and rebuild.
Yeah. Qualifying is at least always very good. Like it's probably one of the best qualifyings of the year. So that's great. It's usually very entertaining. So I think it's important to watch Monaco with that in mind. Really sit down and like watch the Saturday qualifying like it's the race.
Because it is.
And then like the race is actually one of those great things. They have like people throw a party, or you go to one of those like car club events, and it's like watching the Super Bowl. Like real Super Bowl fans, real football fans hate watching the Super Bowl at a Super Bowl party, because everybody's yapping and doing other stuff, and they're there for the commercials, and football fans just want to watch the football. So you could kind of like be liberated and watch the Monaco race in an environment where you don't really give a crap, because nothing's really going to happen anyway. So it's all about attitude. It's all about attitude.
Yeah. No, you're right. Qualifying determines the race. So 2 quick things. One thing I just thought about the Verstappen O2 Arena. I just popped in my head. Yeah, it's in Britain, where Norris and Hamilton and Russell get huge cheers. He'll get booed. That's probably part of it.
He probably will.
But so with Monaco, there's an easy fix to make it interesting, and you would long-term make more money, I think, for the city and the venue. When you come out of the tunnel and they have the little square chicane,
yeah,
keep left, go out over the water, build a bit of a track over the water that's got a big straight, wide, big passing, then you can come back around the pool, and then you could charge those billionaires even more money to get like literal trackside parking out on the water.
There you go. Perfect. They've talked in the past. They had some whole plan about expanding Monaco, and they're going to basically pave over more of the Mediterranean there and make the city a little bigger and do some other stuff. And I don't know if that's happening or not, but
No.
You have to think eventually it will. But
I'm sure the environmentalists weren't too happy about you just taking over ocean.
No, probably not.
See, mine's a bridge, so it's fine.
Oh, I see. Okay, good for you. It's okay. The billionaires will do something to make the environmentalists happy. So, it's speaking of things that are still sticking around. Apparently, the rumor has it that yes, Sergio Perez is not going anywhere, which is shocking to say the least. But there's a couple. I mean, obviously he keeps insisting he's saying that, but we kind of can't listen to him. There's sort of a couple big hints. One is that these new F1 sponsors were announced, and Kit Kat was announced as a big F1 sponsor, which is owned by Nestle, and they're a major sponsor of Sergio Perez. And so it's probably all tied in. You could, if you want to play devil's advocate, say, well, actually, this is a sign that they're pulling their money there and they're going to put it over with official Formula One and not behind a sponsor. But it looks like for some reason, the sponsors love Sergio Perez. They must sell a lot of Kit Kat bars in Mexico or something. I don't know.
Well, it's all South America that he relates to as well.
Agreed.
I mean, not because he speaks Spanish. A lot of places down there don't, but it just seems to be, when they go to Interlagos, he still has fans everywhere.
Yeah.
Maybe part of it too is there's no one who can replace him. Like you're looking at running racing bulls and everyone else is now signed. So except for Bottas.
Yeah, well, they're talking. Here you go. Get Bottas. Did you? Oh, this is totally off topic. Did you see his Instagram post? This is maybe the best Formula One news of the week. He did an Ironman in his house, basically between his own swimming pool. He has a Peloton treadmill and a running machine, and he did the whole thing in like a day, and he was beat. And he's a madman, right? Just crazy.
He'll be doing stuff next year, just probably not in Formula One.
No. I mean, he'd be. I'm sure Fabulous could get pretty much any racing seat he wanted in any competitive series in the world. But he should also maybe look at more of being more of a celebrity. He seems to sort of just be quirky and funny enough, and he's got the confidence. So go for it. I actually saw another weird video on my feed the other day of him testing out hockey equipment over the years. It was some video of him by one of his sponsors, and it was it was him doing a slap shot in with equipment from the 80s, equipment from the 90s, and current equipment. And I honestly don't know how fast. I'm pretty sure the slap shot times were in kilometers per hour, not miles per hour, but it was 120 kilometers an hour. And I was like, well, that's pretty good. So I think the pros do it in 100 miles an hour, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, no, they do. There's a seat that just opened at Sky Sports because Damon Hill's leaving. So, that could just be his foot right in, or he could do quirky European things, sort of like how Ricardo's going to Bills games and tailgating with the Bills Mafia and whatnot. So,
He just becomes an official like ambassador for Formula One. There you go. Bottas's new careers. We figured it out for him. So. So there's another funny thing just about Sergio Perez. So I was doing a little reading up on this, and so I guess there's this one businessman whose name is Carlos Slim, and he's like owns parts in a whole bunch of companies, and so he's kind of the one backing him. And apparently, this sort of backing that Perez has, they cover Perez's entire salary, and basically on top of that, bring about $30 million to the team. So like that's tremendously, like he's free. So it's got to be hard to do that. And if you're Red Bull, you have to be thinking, well, to a certain extent, all that money is funding the Verstappen machine, right? And they kind of don't care if he loses. But I say that now, long term, you need a quality second driver if you're going to win championships. I think that Red Bull is getting lucky here at the end of the year with some things. All those years that I don't know that Hamilton would have won it without a Bottas to sort of be a gunner, and it's what you need, especially when things get competitive. So,
yeah. So before we leave here, because we're going over time, last story is the race director of Formula One is suddenly out of position, and people are saying, "Oh, he resigned," but they're saying, "No, he was fired." And I would believe the latter, because there's only 3 races left. Why would you not wait till the end of the season? And 3 races ago, no penalties were given out on ridiculous driving. And then 2 races ago, they come down hard on Verstappen. And then 2 weeks ago, like the last race, that complete gong show with the start and everything. So I don't know if they're using him as a scapegoat, or if maybe his hands were tied and he had to do all this. And he's like, I'm out of here. I'm done with this.
Yeah. Who knows? There's always stuff going on behind the scenes that you almost can't even comprehend. There's almost no conspiracy that's crazy enough, is the gist of it, right? Like you could dream up anything and you'd be like, oh, actually, it wasn't even that weird, right? Like,
well, last week we talked about the drivers sent that letter or whatever to the FIA. So, I mean, that probably had some sort of consequence on this too. But whatever it is, whoever's in charge next week, the spotlight's going to be on them. So they're probably praying it's just a straightforward race. They don't have to make any crucial decisions.
Yeah. I'm all for crucial decisions. Let's go with some shenanigans.
Yeah. Well, there will be, especially with the Constructors Championship so close between 3 teams.
Yeah, and everybody watching in Vegas. So
yeah. All right. Well, thanks for joining us. We will be back next week to preview the Vegas race, even though it will have already happened when people listen to us. But that's part of the fun, is seeing how wrong we get everything.
Take care.
All right. See ya. All right. Well, this has been another lengthy show, but we'll be quick here. So this week I've been driving an Infiniti QX60, which may not sound all that crazy, but it has the Turbo 4, which the Murano is getting, as we know, and I would assume the Pathfinder at some point, because it's like the only one left with that V6 front-wheel drive-ish design. And I have the Black Edition, which is also new for 25. So I got the 2 big changes. Okay. So I won't talk about it right now. I have a big video feature on that coming out. Kyle, you were not on this continent for some of this week.
No. I started this week off in Copenhagen, driving the new, facelifted Volvo XC90. The embargo is still a little bit away, so I can't really talk about how it drives. I can say I really like the new looks, and they work really well in person. So that was fun, and also it's just really cool to drive around Copenhagen and Sweden and take in the sights there. I came home and also picked up a all-wheel drive 2-liter turbo 9-speed automatic vehicle. Probably not cross-shopped with the QX60 though, because it's a CLE 300 from Mercedes-Benz.
Yes.
It's a very pretty coupe, because Mercedes can pull off elegant coupes in a way I don't think many people can these days. I stopped to find my regular glasses because I was driving home and it got dark at 4 o'clock. And so I was looking wherever my glasses case was in the car to swap, and a guy walked across the gas station parking lot just to tell me how nice the car was and asked if he could take a look inside. It's a nice red. Yeah. Also, I have these scars on me now. So that was good. And then you and I are taking off. Actually, when this airs on Monday, I will already be in LA for the LA Auto Show. But then you will be arriving a few days later, and we're going to be busy with a lot of stuff.
Yeah, and we're going to do our next episode live. Well, not live, but we're going to record it at the LA Auto Show. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. Hopefully it works. Back to the XC90. It's so crazy that the biggest styling departure that model's probably ever had is this facelift. Like, it's always kind of toed the line, even generation to generation. And all of a sudden it's like, whoa. It's like they let someone like snuck one by that they didn't see.
It's funny too, because like if you just kind of catch it out of the corner of your eye, there's something very CX-90 about how it looks in terms of the proportions and like the headlights and the grille, and there's just something about it. But then when you're looking at it in person and actually focused, it's really nice, and I really enjoy this. The contrasting lines in the grille are something that really works, and it didn't seem like it would. And it's just funny to me because BMW releases the X3 with a similar sort of grille thing, and people are like, oh, but Volvo does it, and people are like, oh, that's a cool design thing. And I just think it has to do with the shape of the grille. So, yeah.
All right. Well, we should wrap this up because we're going on in time. Just quickly, next week I also have the Cadillac CT5 Sport. So I'm really looking forward to that because I've driven the Blackwing twice and go on and on about how much I love it. So now I get to try just a regular CT5, and this is like almost entry. I mean, it's the all-wheel drive, but this is like it's like 55 US, and this one's maybe at 60. Like, it's not that terrible. So we'll see how I like it.
Cool.
All right. Well, until next week, we will see you later.
So long, everybody.
Picture this. You're halfway through a DIY car fix, tools scattered everywhere, and boom, you realize you're missing a part. It's okay, because you know whatever it is, it's on eBay. They've got everything: brakes, headlights, cold air intakes, whatever you need, and it's guaranteed to fit, which means no more crossing your fingers and hoping you ordered the right thing. All the parts you need, at the prices you'll love, guaranteed fit every time. eBay, things people love.